All right, our teaching today is going to be in 1 Peter 3, 1 through 7. So make sure you have a Bible and 1 Peter 3, 1 through 7 in front of you. Before we get into this, a quick note about 1 Peter. This is a book that we've been reading all semester. And I want you to understand that this book was written, as many of the New Testament letters were, as a letter to a specific group of people with a specific set of issues. When Peter wrote this, he didn't just sit down and go, I wonder what topics I should just randomly talk about. In the same way that if you've ever sent an email to someone or a text message, you're not just randomly thinking, I'm going to put together some thoughts and just kind of send them out. No, usually you're in a conversation with someone, you're responding to questions, you're addressing specific things about that person. That's what Peter's doing in this letter. This is called an epistle. And many, almost all of the New Testament letters operate like this. They're written to a specific group of people. This helps us clear up a lot of the confusing things that we might read where we're like, I wonder why he's talking about that. And it'll specifically help us with this passage today in chapter 3, verses 1 through 7. Here's the specific issue that Peter is addressing with this passage. During the early church, so 2,000 years ago, as the gospel of Jesus began to spread, many people put their faith in Jesus who were married. And specifically, a lot of women came to faith in Jesus who were married to men who were of a different religion or of a different faith. So if your parents have different belief systems, if one is a Christian and one is something else, then you can relate and understand what's going on here. Now, at this time, though, this was unusual. Women, wives, did not often have different belief systems than their husbands. They would just take on whatever religion their husband had. At this time, women did not have the same sort of status and equality as men. Women were seen as sort of second-class citizens in the culture. And so it would have been unusual for them to be in this position of, well, I have faith in Jesus now, but I don't know how to relate to my husband. And so Peter's addressing this and answering their questions like, what am I supposed to do? Like, is this okay? How should I treat my husband? And he's going to say something very similar to what we learned last week. Last week when we learned that Peter says, even when you're subject to different authorities and human institutions, it's right for you to show respect and honor because that shows off God. He's going to say something similar here. Now, when we read this passage, it's going to sound a little strange at first, as I mentioned, but it'll make more sense when you understand what Peter's trying to say. And embedded in what we're going to read is actually a larger principle. Like, I know many of you are not married and are not thinking about marriage or not thinking about being a husband or being a wife right now, but there's a larger principle embedded here about what it means to be a man and what it means to be a woman. So let's get into the first few verses 1 and 2 here, and you'll see what I mean. It starts like this. Likewise, wives, so he's addressing wives specifically, be subject to your own husbands, so that even if some do not obey the word, so even if some are not Christians, they may be won without a word by the conduct of their wives, when they see your respectful and pure conduct. What he's saying is similar to what we learned last week. When you're respectful, when you're honoring to others, even if they don't believe the same thing as you, it actually shows off God. It shows off who God is. And so when you think about like yourself or maybe a group of friends you're a part of or a group of friends that you could have in middle school someday, think like, what do you want to be known for? Every group of friends, every person sort of takes on a little bit of an identity that other people know you for, right? There's like the popular group, and they might be exclusive and cool, and not welcome a lot of people into their group of friends. There might be the athletic kids. They talk about sports, they play sports, and if you don't play sports, you're not really a part of that group, right? Might be kind of the weird kids or the nerdy kids or the kids who are like too into Star Wars. That was me when I was a kid, right? And so like depending on what group you fall into, you sort of gain this reputation. Now, what if you or a group of friends that you had were known for being the welcoming, kind, and accepting group? That everybody knew that if they came up to you and spent time with you, they would be able to be themselves, they'd be welcomed, they'd be accepted exactly as they are. Can you imagine how powerful that would be? That would actually show off to people that you believe in a God who is like that. And so that's what Peter means when he says your respectful and your pure conduct. That could win others over into wanting to follow Jesus. All right, now this next section, verses 3 and 4, this is going to address girls specifically. And so, guys, I don't want you to just turn off your brains, but know that this is specifically addressed to you girls. He says, do not let your adorning be external, meaning don't let the way that you consider your outward appearance, your beauty, just be external. The braiding of hair, the putting on of gold jewelry, the clothing you wear. Let your adorning be the hidden person of the heart, with the imperishable beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which in God's sight is very precious. Now, he's recognizing something here that's true for us today. And girls, you know this, but I'll just remind you, like, you face a ton of pressure in our world today to look and act a certain way, right? Sometimes it's to look beautiful enough by being skinny or wearing the right clothes or being, just having this outward sense of beauty. Maybe it's wearing the right brand of jeans. Sometimes it's not following trends, like you specifically try hard to not be part of the in crowd. Whatever it is, there's this standard set that is being imposed on you from outside by images and words in our culture that say, this is how you ought to look on the outside. That's what it means to be beautiful, to be valuable, to be accepted. I mean, we see this coming down from tons of the influencers on like Instagram or TikTok or YouTube. Maybe it's actresses or models or just the kids in school that you consider the prettiest or the coolest. Like, there's just these constant messages and images saying, this is how you need to look to be valuable and to be beautiful. This causes tons of confusion often inside for many girls. This is what leads to things like depression and anxiety. And this is why girls struggle with eating disorders. And I just, my heart goes out to you that y'all have to experience that in our day. But it is a reality, and Peter knows it's a reality here too. He also knows it's a trap. This is a trap that God does not want you to fall into, this mode of thinking, that beauty is just external, what you wear and how you look. Rather, he knows that that kind of beauty can fade. But he calls out a different kind of beauty. He calls it imperishable beauty. It's a gentle and quiet spirit, your humility, your character. I know it sounds cliche to say that it's not on the outside that really counts, it's what's on the inside. But that makes sense, doesn't it? Your outward appearance can change and shift and trends come and go, but your inner character, who you are and how you express that to other people, you choose that. And that's ultimately what's beautiful in God's sight. That's what he looks at and says, that's valuable to me, that's beautiful to me, not just how you look or how you dress on the outside. And so you can take that pressure off of yourself. So that's the specific message here for girls. So what about guys? What about men? Well, he goes on to say in verse 7, likewise, husbands, and I know many of you guys are not husbands or not thinking about marriage or not thinking that way, so just hear this just as likewise, guys, live with your wives or live with other women in an understanding way, showing honor to the woman as the weaker vessel, since they are heirs with you of the grace of life, so that your prayers may not be hindered. This is super important in learning how to relate to girls, guys. And especially as you get older, the older you get sort of in middle school and as you get into high school, the conversation around things like dating and how you relate to girls really begins to change. Where it's easy to fall into a pattern where girls are not someone to be honored and respected, but someone that you sort of seek for your own personal gain. Whether to show off that you can get girls or to be cool, or sometimes it's like Peter says, you look down on them as the weaker vessel. And that sounds kind of strange to us. Like, I don't recommend calling another girl a weaker vessel. That's a little cringy for us, but he's just acknowledging the reality that men are, in general, bigger and stronger than women. I'm not saying all men are bigger and stronger than all women. There's plenty of women who could beat me up who are much stronger than me. But in general, men are larger and stronger than women. He's saying, don't use that as a way to dominate or to intimidate. Rather, use it as a way to prop up women, to show them respect and the honor that God sees them with. And so, as the language you hear your friends talk about girls, as that changes, maybe some of the language becomes demeaning, whether it becomes disrespectful, and guys sort of do that in order to look cool or to look funny. Peter's saying, no, there's a different way for you. Show them the respect and honor they deserve. Why? Because they're equal to you. He says here that they are heirs with you of the grace of life. Everything that God has given you and offered to you in Jesus Christ, he's also offered in the same way to women. They're equal in value to you. That's something you may know, but at this time, as I mentioned, women were second-class citizens. They didn't enjoy that same kind of honor and respect of equality in their day. And so this is radical what Peter is writing. And so we're living in the reality of his teaching now, where we know that's important, but yet we still have to seek and strive for it. And so this is what we're going to talk about in our small groups now. That women, you need to seek beauty on the inside that cannot change or be taken away, instead of constantly being concerned with your outward appearance. And guys, that it's your job to show honor and respect and equality towards women through a humble kindness toward them and a gentleness. And actually, when we act in this way toward one another and towards other people, especially people who don't believe the same thing we believe, Peter's saying here that it will win others over. People will want to follow Jesus because they see the way in which you act toward each other.